Percentage. Give me a percentage of the person that you are inside your head and the person that you are when you interact with other people.
I would say 80% now.
80%.
But it didn't used to be that way.
80%. I think I'm at probably less than that. I guess that's my answer.
Oh.
I'll start by saying that in my head, I have those crazy ideas about world peace and all this stuff, and I have these. They're not fantasies. They're what are they? It's like an imagination of me saying hi to everybody and being cool with everybody.
Yep.
I have this crazy idea in my head, and for some reason I can't get that going, and yeah.
Well,
That's one of the things, one of the separations from who I am. It's funny because actually not in real life, but outside of my head, I'm actually reserved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that sociable. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Throw that out there.
Yeah. Neither am I, and I guess at least in my head I've accepted that, and so, well, that's what brings me closer. And the thing is, though, is that at my 80% alignment, it didn't used to be that way. I would say there was a point where I would have graded myself at less than 50%, and partly because, only up until, a couple of years ago, I was hiding this whole gay thing. There was, growing up at a time when, being gay was not accepted, there was a lot of self-loathing, there was a lot of wishing that I weren't this way, but I am, so the best I could do is just portray that I'm not, and that kind of created a disconnect between, the way I saw it or the way I portrayed myself versus this is how I felt inside.
I used to play my facade, my persona, to be more in line with the music I was into. Hey, just because I like rock and metal means I'm supposed to be you're not supposed to, but going against the norm.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
I used to give in to that,
Yeah.
thinking that my actions had to be in line with the music I was listening to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what grade does that fall under. What percentage is that when you become the person that is more concerned with pleasing others?
Oh, I've been there. That I think at least during those times, during my times, I would that would be less than 50%.
Yeah, but nowadays there's this weird there's this middle ground where I think it's actually okay now to either hide or suppress or basically adjust the person that you are to fit with and I'm talking about strangers mainly because people you're well acquainted with and they know who you are, they can trust that your intentions aren't bad, but when you first meet somebody,
Yeah.
For example, dry humor.
Yeah.
Or this whole political correctness thing that's going on. You can't just outright just say certain things from the get-go.
Yep.
So now I actually think that it's not necessarily a bad thing to try to adjust and find common ground between you and someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And not so much highlight the differences by just being yourself. And if they like you, they like you. If not, I think, I want to work on listening more.
Mm-hmm.
If I could listen more and get to know the other person more, I can focus more on the points where we either agree on something or, as opposed to be like, all right, see you later.
Yeah.
As opposed to the differences that would separate us, if not forever, when there's a possibility that we could be friends and find something lasting. Which I would prefer, of course.
Being able to establish more relationships is nice, but eventually that actual self is that facade is going to crack, and at least some of your actual self is going to come out eventually. Having the facade is nice in that it keeps kind of the order of things,
like this neutrality.
Yeah.
No, I feel like when you get to know someone more, little by little,
Mm-hmm.
you can show
Yeah.
your real self. But I don't know if it's me. Sometimes I feel like if I were to be myself 100%, it might just be too much at once. And I'm not saying it's because I'm crazy, but it's because, like, for example, I like to have deep discussions. I can imagine someone getting freaked out if I were to ask, hey, how was your childhood, or this or that,
Yeah,
like right off the
no.
bat, you know, like, hey, you have any traumas from your past that maybe we could discuss? Things like that. But realistically, I do enjoy having these conversations more so than surface level things.
Oh, yeah, no, you definitely don't want to ask questions like that. There is, you know, in order to maintain a sort of peace, and like there's a level of decorum that needs to be involved.
Okay, so fine. Overall, do you believe that, do you think the world would be a better place if everyone was operating at 100% of who they are? Or do you think that these compromises are necessary and that we can't be without these compromises?
I think on a social level, I think the compromises are necessary, but to an extent. I mean, there is such a thing as too much compromise, and you know, there is a point where people need to be their actual selves. Otherwise, it just does damage to them.
Can we bring this full circle? 100% being yourself. I just want to comment that, yeah, you're right. Sometimes if you're not operating as your true self,
Mm-hmm.
you just create a whole nother world of problems.
Yep. Yeah, but on the other hand, and there does need to be a level of decorum. I mean, you can't portray everything at once, at least not at first. So I would say, the facade versus your true self. As long as you can get to the majority of that, you can get to a majority percentage where like those things match up, then I'd say you're doing fine.
I want to add that another potential problem with that is, it's funny because another, like a factor of
Mm-hmm.
this facade is the way that I actually place my assumptions on someone else that I've never met.
Mm-hmm.
What are those expectations?
Yeah.
What is that called when you try to figure someone else out before you even met them? What is that called again? When you think you have them figured out, you're like, oh, or I know your type, or I know this and this about you. What is that called?
What, presumptions? Assumptions?
Hey, you get my point, though,
Yeah.
right? So another factor that I would have to acknowledge is I might have to let go of that habit. Of course it's a bad habit.
Yeah.
Is it fun? Yes. I mean, if you put together television, movies, and music, and, you know, like, there are certain behaviors attached to certain
Yes.
forms of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, do you do that often? See people and try to see what you know about them beforehand? Presume or assume things about them?
I really can't say that I don't. I do. But
For me, it's so fun when you're right. I don't know why. Is it sick? Yeah, maybe, I guess. But it makes me feel a little bit smarter, maybe, sometimes.
yeah, but in general, that's a bad habit. And
That is one of the worst things.
Yeah.